Hello everyone. The so-called opposition in Ireland have really shown their true colours. Today I want to speak about Holly Cairns, leader of the Social Democrat Party in Ireland. And of course she appeared on RTE's flagship programme, The Late Late Show, last night for a nice interview with Patrick Keelty. Of course, Social Democrat are completely a globalist establishment party. And what was interesting in a few issues that was brought up last night, she spoke firstly on the presidential election, and she spoke about the amount of spoiled ballots, where over 200,000 people decided to spoil their ballot because of the undemocratic nature and farcical nature of the Irish presidential election. And she said that they weren't a homogenous group, and she said there was clearly not enough people on the ballot. But then in the next breath she said, well, the process works quite well. Holly Cairns, let's go on. Clueless, where can we go? She went on then to talk about Ivan Yates and the issues arising about his training of Jim Gavin. Maybe Fianna Fáil should be looking for their money back on that media training that took place. And she said that she has received media training, being positioned as the leader of the Social Democrat Party since 2023, but didn't go on to say who she received her media training from. But then she also went on to talk about immigration and said she wants to call out the Taoiseach's behaviour because he's pointing the finger of blame at immigration, saying the figures on immigration are too high. She went on to speak about the riots in City West and right across Dublin a couple of years ago, and also spoke about what happened in Drogheda. Of course, that's under the courts at the moment, and there is links to a criminal feud in terms of what took place in Drogheda over a week ago with the International Protection accommodation facility up in Drogheda that's actually undergoing, as I said, a criminal case currently. And she also said that she wasn't willing to reduce work permits. Now, this is interesting, not willing to reduce work permits, and said it's necessary for the prosperity of the Irish economy to continue giving out work permits. And she spoke in the context of the meat processing plants. Says it all. Low pay, low wages, that's who the Social Democrats support. 1 in 5 workers are on low pay, and she admitted it. And she said she wants to deal with facts and not based in fantasy figures, she said. But it's interesting, she also said that there was no link between immigration and crime. Well, obviously there's no statistics in relation to immigration and crime, but she also went on to talk about more Irish people commit crime than immigrants. Well, I think that's obvious when you have a bigger percentage. Maybe per capita would be a better way to describe it, Holly Cairns. Maybe she should have got more media training on that question. But completely out of touch and completely clueless. She also said there was a lot of good things that Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael have done in government. And she also said before she was going into government, or even having government talks with them, there was 5 deal breakers. What was those deal breakers? Nice cushy positions of power in that government. Of course, the Social Democrats have no interest in representing the needs of ordinary people. They're just a globalist party and very much pro-European Union. She also spoke about Owen Hayes, the TD for the Social Democrats, who was suspended for 8 months because of the shares he had in Palantir and the links to Israel. Now, she said that she will fully support Owen Hayes if he stands again for the Social Democrats in the future election. And this is the so-called change that they're talking about, the change of the same old stroke politics. That's what they have all over their website and everything, but it's more of the same stroke politics, pulling the wool over the people's eyes with the Social Democrats. What change are they? Not much. But wait for it, it even gets better and even more clueless with Holly Cairns. She went on to be asked about the forming a left government in terms of Sinn Féin, of course. And it's an establishment government, and it's not, I wouldn't call them left by any stretch of the imagination. She said that she would favour a left government, but would talk to everyone, after saying that she said a lot of good things that Fine Gael and Fianna Fáil have done. She also spoke about the border poll in United Ireland, and this was interesting because she said she wasn't certain if there's going to be a border poll in the next 5 to 10 years, and didn't seem to have much of a knowledge about the will of the Irish people. Never spoke about the European Union agenda, and never spoke about many more issues in terms of the bigger globalist agenda at play and the lack of democracy in Irish society and the top-down policies coming from the European Union. And of course the Social Democrats are pro EU party, and it shows the fallacy of their whole image of being a social democrat party, which has no bearing essentially in the neoliberal model of the European Union. So it's a complete fallacy and lie when they talk about equality, when they talk about justice, and they talk about better public services for people. Under the European Union, it's impossible because essentially they're pursuing the neoliberal policy, and they said they're fully supporting the membership of the European Union. So really, since we've ceded our sovereignty and ceded the power to the European Union, maybe these parties should come clean to really what's taking place across society and just say they're probably a lighter version of what we currently have in government in terms of maybe more policies that would sound better on the face of it, but underlying issues are still the same in terms of the more power being centralised in the European Union, and there's still an elite project. And of course, they're pushing so much of the nonsense woke agenda as well that it probably could take years to talk about that completely deluded politics that they're pushing out there. But it just demonstrates a lack of understanding, lack of knowledge, a lack of understanding of really what's taking place across Irish society. It's more of the same pontificating, preaching, and the clueless nonsense that comes from these so-called political leaders who are foisted into these positions and are very happy to do their spreads in VIP magazine, showing off their luxury houses and while preaching down to the working classes, and at the same time demonstrates their elitist liberal views whilst preaching to ordinary working class people. So that's what the Social Democrats stand for. Really absolutely nothing. But they're 9% in the polls, so maybe it says a lot about many of those who support them. Maybe they should open their eyes and see what they really stand for and ask them the real tough questions that they can't answer, in particular their leader, Clueless Cairns.